Okay, this is going to be controversial. Today, we have places that we live where, when we live there, we sort of agree to follow the laws of that place. If we cross a line to a new place, there's a new set of rules. You'd be hard pressed to find anywhere where there are no rules. Right now, EOS is essentially duplicating this type of system where if you cross the line, you are held at gunpoint to follow a certain set of laws or risk forfeiture of property. Now, right now, those guns have no bullets in them, but they may.
But the guns are there.
Their guns are there. So we are proposing that ECAF, which is essentially the default arbitration forum, because when you arbitrate, you must have prior consent to arbitrate to an agreement, and you must have consent to a specific set of rules under which to arbitrate. We are advocating for the removal of ECAF from the Constitution and a repurposing of ECAF to be the block producer dispute resolution forum. So including it in the reg producer contract, because there is no one more incentivized to go after a non-compliant block producer, whatever that means, than standbys and block producers who are essentially being stolen from by those non-compliant block producers and standbys, or well, just blockers. So an additional, but that doesn't mean dispute resolution should not exist on EOS. It should, and it should be something that should resemble arbitration in the real world, which is something that you and I, parties to an agreement, consent to prior to executing that agreement. So we're also advocating the proposal of reg forum and reg arbitrator for a couple reasons. The first reason is block producers need a way to identify the arbitration association to recognize their authority. If you were to have a dispute with something related on EOS and go to your state government, the blockchain won't care. You could go in the United States and talk to EOS New York, and they can tell me to go do something, and I'm just not going to do it because one, I don't want to, and two, I couldn't if I wanted to. So it's creating reg forum for any established arbitration association anywhere in the world to be recognized as something that can adjudicate or rule on matters on chain. And then reg arbitrator for the reason of identifying the actual authority, the person doing the arbitrating, to identify them on chain as well. And basically what we're calling this is consent of law is law. So it's creating sort of a blank space in EOS where you can just exist on top of the code, and that is essentially what governs that space. And should you wish, now with the introduction of reg forum and reg arbitrator, it creates a way for you to opt into arbitration should you wish to have it. But otherwise, we remove the gun and the threat of forfeiture of property by just being a member of EOS.
Sorry, are you saying there is no default arbitration?
Yes.
What are the two sides to that?
So just to explain, so this is the group was not unanimous at all. So the idea is just presenting what was talked about in the group. So there was one side of the group that was proposing this. So you would have specific forums that you would opt in, but by default, the constitution would be changed so that there is no default arbitration. So that ECAF, let's say we rename it, it would be repurposed so that it would be used for arbitration between block producers. That would be inserted into reg producer. Now the other side of, it wasn't 50-50 at all, these two ideas. The other side, I guess the The issues with this, or the concerns with this, is who would judge the Constitution. That would be solved if the Constitution is changed. But currently, with the current Constitution, who can judge the Constitution? What about lost keys? So this was brought up. So the people...
Sorry, with the current Constitution, is it not absolutely clear that it's ECAF?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, so what Kevin is proposing, or what was proposed, was that ECAF would be repurposed when the Constitution is changed. That default ECAF would be removed. And to clarify as well,
So no default
it would be
means
so by default, code is law. You opt in to specific pockets of forms is what was discussed. Now on the other side, so just let me finish because then it explains everything. So by default in this proposed system, code is law, and then you enter into arbitration forms. Now on the flip side, what was said was we should have ECAF, regardless of whether it's ECAF in its current form or not, but the idea would be we need ECAF, we need a chain that is governed, and we need a chain that by default has arbitration. Now this group, we didn't get into, so the scope of this did not talk about how arbitrators are chosen or how ECAF is funded. However, the solution would be keep the current style of constitution that has ECAF by default, and then have this ECAF fully funded by, perhaps as an option, fully funded by worker proposals to a point where they're able to do everything that they should be doing in a world where arbitration exists. Until they are in a situation where they can do everything that they want to do and they should be doing, then there would be somewhat of a break or a pause until they're able to be where they should be. So none of this in between, I'm not so much ready. So that was one option that was proposed. Do you want to add?
Yeah, just for kind of the other group, we all abide to a constitution as BPs and as EOS token holders. All wallets have the constitution and then recardian of the constitution, and every single token holder that are in wallets, they abide to the constitution. So right now, ECAF is a reality. We can change the constitution, but right now we need ECAF. The thing is, we need a professional ECAF, and so the proposal at this point would be just to have a worker proposal, make a request for proposals for arbitration chambers, like professional arbitration chambers, that can resolve constitutional disputes. And ECAF would be constitutional court only. It's not so much a default arbitrator. If you are entering in a private relationship with another user, using a smart contract, there should be an arbitrator in that smart contract that you resolve that private dispute. So on the constitutional level, we would have the ECAF, which would be financed by a worker proposal and would be chosen among established arbitration bodies that already exist. And everyone or everything that happens right now, it's under the current constitution, but we can change this constitution so that we don't need ECAF, and that code is law, and we don't have any constitutional judgment or resolution whatsoever. But I think that the constitution in place right now, and we all agree, we need ECAF for the current constitution, and it's all about the process. We should define a process to choose an ECAF that is respected by the world and by corporates or corporations, and that have the authority, not only given by the ZABP, but the kind of moral authority to be the constitutional court for users at this point.
So to summarize, there was no consensus at all as to whether or not arbitration should be default in EOS. That was very clear.
Can we get a quick show of hands?
what people think. Between those two camps.
Can we do it now?
Everybody who wants to get rid of default arbitration and EOS, raise your hand.
Wait, what?
Can we just define what default arbitration is? Because
Right, so those users whose keys got stolen from a bad website, you know, they didn't enter into any contract or any arbitration, so they are purely shit out of luck.
so this would be constitutional judgment. Just to get
I'm saying
there.
all the cases we have right now would be completely unavailable.
Should be followed through.
Yeah.
So at the moment the case started, it should be followed through until completion using the constitution that was in place at the time of starting.
I'm saying, but any others in the future, well, the users just.
No, actually, so just, we didn't mention that, so, yes, one thing that was tough luck. One thing was the cases that have already started would be followed through. In the future, to answer to your question, should I, as a user, want to have insurance, I would opt into a forum that would have default arbitration in there. That was what was being proposed, but the interim time, so the people that currently have not by default, if we were to change, then yes, in the future, they would have no recourse. Should they not opt into this was the discussion.
So no governance whatsoever for the people who don't know enough to buy insurance and do contracts and like
Some people were strongly
not a government
opinionated, and I'm not saying no, I'm just saying this was the
this is
discussion.
not a governed blockchain at that.
I would just say that I think that we have different discussions here. There's one discussion that should we change the constitution to and suppress the article that says that no property shall change hands without consent or without arbitration or without community referendum. And the fact is, this constitution is in place and we all abide to that. So it's in place. And for now, I think that we get a consensus for now, and people that are affected by this at this point, they have the right to an ECAF. And we should have a process to get ECAF in place, an ECAF that is actually respected and have the authority and the knowledge to do that.
The resources.
The resources and everything. And then my proposal in the end was that a working proposal is set so that we have a request for proposals for arbitration chambers that are already there, and they will compete to be the ECAF, one or many that should be defined, and we have now an ECAF. And then we can have a constitutional referendum to change any article, and the constitution can become ungoverned or anywhere we want to go and people vote, the constitution will be. At this point we have ECAF, right?
There can be so it's not arbitration.
I'm just curious. There's so much fear about ECAF and all of these horrible powers they have, right? We've frozen 28 accounts so far. Has one person, one of those accounts complained?
No, that's not.
That
It's
it's
not
frozen?
arbitration.
Right, arbitration hasn't even happened.
Right.
They've just accepted cases.
We can have a lost key Genesis key investigation service for as long as.
Really? Will that be in the Constitution? Is that a default thing
It's
now?
just not. It's not arbitration. Like what we have is an arbitration right now. That's all I'm suggesting.
In what way is it not?
The recovery of lost keys is one thing. The dispute of theft, that is arbitration. But for people who have lost the keys, it's not really.
So basically you mean that the lost key is more like technical than a legal thing. It doesn't mean that.
And I want to clarify that what I'm saying right now is not the consensus of the group. That was.
And what's the fear? If we take the tokens away from the thief and give them back to the original owner, we have done violence to the thief, and so we're behaving unethically? Is this the problem?
I think I can answer your question. I had a word with these two sort of opinion leaders that are outside of EOS. One was a huge American crypto hedge fund that is investing in EOS and basically doing it long term. It's one of the whales, they haven't voted yet. And the question is, what the fuck are you guys doing? Basically, I'm just rephrasing, so forgive me my language. And their point was this, like, there's a bunch of kids there, probably, just screwing around with the blockchain and thinking, oh, we can maybe refund these guys, maybe these guys, maybe these guys. And then we're importing some delusional concept of the law system onto a Article 14.
It's not a court.
Okay.
It's not a court. Wrong one.
Okay.
We agree that ECAF exists.
A body to resolve constitutional dispute. Do we all agree that we should have this body that is, as Marcin said, you use beautiful words that I cannot reproduce right now, but that is, I don't know, have confidence from the external world, not us, and that are not some people that just say, okay, I'm ECAF. And we should have a process in place to choose who those constitutional arbitrators will be. Show of hands who agree with that.
And we already can, by the way, because that's how.
The question is, do we agree that we need a formal process to choose reliable and someone with a good reputation to be our dispute resolution body at the constitutional level at this point? Do you all agree?
It seems like you're implying that the current people weren't selected properly.
Sorry?
It seems that you're implying that the current group weren't selected properly, and I object to that implication.
Okay. That's what I'm implying. There was no process whatsoever in place to choose.
There was no process in place for anything. And all power right now emanates from a single point. It is the ABP who put the stuff in place. There is no other source of power. There is no. So I think there should be a process coming by referenda, but there is no
person speak at a time.
In the current rules for dispute resolution for ECAF, it does outline that arbitrators are selected by the community. That is part of it. Obviously, without a way to select them, there was an interim process which was done, and to the best of their ability, they vetted the interim arbitrators who are currently doing what they're doing. So that's what happened.
I'm going to jump in and say that there was the two sides of the argument. One is the principled one saying we cannot impose a court that was not elected on chain or whatever you will. And there was the practical argument saying the normal user is going to click I agree and we're going to leave him over there. So my comment on this was we must include standards for smart contracts to include an option to opt in or out, and that's, I think, at the end, more important on the user interface side, whether each time I say I'm going to buy a coffee from someone, whether I have the option to choose my arbitration, and the only difference of opinion is whether if I don't specifically decide to do something about who's arbitrating my contract, whether it's by default Codis law or by default ECAF. And I think the more important issue is that we need to have these standards in place so that it's the usual thing going around every smart contract, that we have, a contract that abides by these standards that lets you choose.
Yes. That's unlike any country in the world.
So it sounds like there's a lot of passion on ECAF, and we do have an open slot on the agenda in breakout number 4, so we can add a second round of ECAF in the third breakout session. So I think we can encourage that thing.
Would you mind if I summarize?
So please go ahead and finish the report.
So the actual, so it's ECAF powers and limitation was the topic. what should we do with ECAF? The proposal was one of the proposals was to repurpose them as the block producer arbitration forum and move the mention of ECAF out of the Constitution into the reg producer document. And also to have a way to identify both arbitrators and arbitration associations on chain so that a free market element may be introduced. And that was involved with two requirements of reg arbitrator and reg forum. And we'll leave this up here in case anyone wants to read it.
Super, thank you so much for your report. So just so you're aware, we are running ahead of schedule. You are amazing. We'll do